The case is smaller than I remembered. That is the first thing I think, standing in front of it. 30 years, and I had built it larger in my head, a reliquary, something cathedral-wide and lit from below. It is a glass rectangle the size of a carry-on bag, mounted at eye level on a cream-colored wall between two much larger exhibits. The Vorhai curator told me, when I asked, that the placement is deliberate. Items of contested categorization go in that row. Things the archive could not immediately file. There it is. 3 inches of black athletic grip tape, peeling at the left corner where I tore it free. They have not restored it. They have preserved it exactly as it was. I was 51 years old when the Vorhai arrived, not young. My knees had been rebuilt twice and my right shoulder carried a titanium anchor the size of my thumbnail. I had spent 22 years playing court handball at the professional level, a sport no one outside a narrow corridor of Central European cities had ever paid much attention to, and another 9 coaching it. I was not famous. The Vorhai did not come for famous. They came for capable, and for whatever reason their instruments agreed I was that. They gave us 72 hours notice, not as cruelty. It was their standard adjudication window. They had been watching Earth for a long time and they had already decided what sport we would play, and they had picked it because no human alive had ever trained for it in the Vorhai's version of the rules. That was the point. They wanted a level court, which to the Vorhai means a court where neither side has an ingrained advantage in technique. Zero gravity, a sphere 40 meters across, a ball the size of a grapefruit, weighted so it drifted rather than flew. The object was to guide it into one of 5 apertures set into the sphere's inner wall, each aperture just wider than the ball, using only the heel of the palm. No fingers, no throwing. You pushed with the base of your hand or you didn't score. Humanity had 72 hours to learn a sport we had never played. The Vorhai had played it for 6,000 years. I will not pretend I understood the stakes fully in those first hours. We were told, clearly, by the Vorhai adjudicators in translation, that the outcome of the contest would determine our species' status in the accord. Not destruction. The Vorhai do not destroy. They classify. A loss meant we were filed as a dependent civilization, managed rather than consulted, for a period of no fewer than 300 years. A win was not on anyone's realistic list of outcomes. We trained for 40 hours in a rented gymnasium, with a modified handball court, and a ball the approximated weight of the Vorhai sphere. There were 11 of us. Athletes pulled from handball, squash, racquetball, gymnastics, anyone whose profession involved reading the geometry of a fast-moving object in 3 dimensions and making a quick decision with their body. We were not a team. We became one in 40 hours the way you become anything that fast, which is badly, but completely. The court itself on the day was not what I had expected. The Vorhai arena was a full sphere, which I had known intellectually, but knowing and floating inside are different things. The noon spectrum ring at the equator lit everything flat and white. There were no shadows. The 5 apertures glowed faintly at their edges. When the gravity cut and we drifted off the entry platform, I felt my stomach shift and then settle, and then I stopped thinking about the 0G, because there was nothing to be done about it. The Vorhai team were larger than us, longer armed, with a reach that made the palm push a natural motion in a way it was not for us. They were also faster. In zero gravity, where strength matters less than leverage, their longer limbs were a continuous mechanical advantage. We scored twice in the first half of the contest, which surprised us. We were also scored against 7 times. My palm went at the 40-minute mark. Court handball at high level tears the skin of the base hand. Mine had been calloused and recalloused over 2 decades until the skin there was tough as leather. But tough is not the same as indestructible, and 40 minutes of repeated palm strikes against a pressurized grapefruit weight sphere had split the callus at the heel of my right hand. The skin opened across a line about 2 centimeters wide. Not deep, not incapacitating, but when I caught the ball and turned for position, I felt it pull, and I knew it would get worse. I did not ask for a timeout. The Vorhai contest protocol did not permit equipment modification after the contest seal, which had been given at the opening bell. I knew this. It had been explained. I also knew, in the way that 2 decades of sport teaches you things below conscious thought, that I needed to cover the split before the next impact or the friction would cost me control at exactly the wrong moment. My right court shoe had been degrading since the 20-minute mark. The inner seam along the heel had been pulling apart. I had felt it working loose, a millimeter at a time, under the torque of zero-gravity push-offs. The shoe was still functional. The seam, however, had opened enough that a strip of the interior grip tape lining, the black rubber band along the inner heel that keeps the foot from slipping, had peeled free at one end. I had noticed it earlier and thought nothing of it. It was not relevant. Then it was. I caught the ball on a long drift across the sphere, tucked it, planted my feet against the inner wall, the magnets in the boot soles holding just long enough, and with my left hand, reached into the back of my right shoe and pulled the tape free. It came off in a strip about 3 inches long. I folded it twice and pressed it over the split in my palm, smooth side against the skin. It adhered, not well. Well enough. The Vorhai official nearest to me went completely still. Not the stillness of surprise, the stillness of a system encountering an input it has no subroutine to handle. I had been around enough sport in my life to know what a referee looks like when they are deciding whether to call something. This was not that. This was something earlier and more fundamental. The official's head turned slowly to the scoring station at the sphere's equator, and I heard, through the translation bead in my ear, a single phrase spoken in the formal contest register. This action is not in our records. They did not stop the contest. I want to be precise about that. The Vorhai adjudicators conferred for 11 seconds, and then the ball was returned to play. We lost the contest. The final score was 9-3, and by any reasonable measure we had done far better than probability suggested. But we lost. The reclassification came 6 hours later, when the adjudication board filed their contest summary with the accord. The score was recorded accurately. So was everything else. The board had also opened a new classification inquiry, which under accord rules required a full review before the status determination could be finalized. The inquiry was about the tape. It took them 4 months. The determination, when it came, was that the act of mid-contest self-repair using non-issued material constituted a category of competition behavior the Vorhai archive had no existing heading for. Not an infraction. The rules did not forbid it, because the rules had never imagined it. Not equipment modification as defined. The tape was not external equipment. It was part of what I had arrived wearing. The archive's 4-month deliberation produced a new heading, the first new heading in their contest classification system in 60 years. The status determination was also revised, not to a win. We had not won. To an unresolved classification, pending the completion of a new study of human competition behavior, which the Vorhai archive noted had produced, in a single 40-minute contest, one data point that required the creation of a new category. An unresolved classification meant no dependent status, no management period. It meant they needed to know more before they could file us anywhere. They have been studying us for 30 years. We remain, as far as I know, unresolved. I am standing in front of the case, and the Vorhai curator is beside me, and she tells me what the new heading says. I ask her to say it again. Adaptive material improvisation, under adjudicated stress conditions. Origin, human, first recorded instance. Status, primary. 3 inches of black grip tape, peeling at the left corner, mounted in a glass case between 2 larger exhibits, in the Hall of Contests on the Vorhai home installation. The first human artifact in the hall. Not the score. Not the technique, the tape. I nod. I put my right hand in my jacket pocket, where I have carried a roll of grip tape every day for 30 years out of habit, the way anyone who has ever played sport carries the thing they might need. I leave it there. I do not take it out. I already gave them 1 strip. That is enough.